everyone, and welcome to episode 496 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have the full crew here this week. Kicking things off with the owner of MTG Goldfish, Richard. How are you this fine Monday, Richard?
Good morning, Seth. Doing well, doing well.
And we got another co-host in Krim. How are you today, Krim?
Yo, I'm glad to be back, fresh back from my first ever Gen Con.
Ooh, how was it? How was Gen Con? I've never done Gen Con. People always say you got to go to Gen Con like at least once, and I've never done it. Is it worth it?
It was, well, first off, it was the first ever sold, I mean, not the first ever, but it's been a while since they had a sold out one according to a lot of the locals, but it was pretty darn packed, and I wasn't sure what to expect because I didn't know Magic and how big its, presence would be there. But turns out there's a lot of Magic, and if it wasn't Magic, there's so many things you could do. You could demo so many board games if that's the thing you're into.
That sounds pretty sweet. I've always wondered that with Gen Con too. Like, if I go, how Magic Con-y is it? Like, could you go and treat it like a Magic Con and just do Magic all weekend if you wanted to?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm assuming you could. The things that I saw, there was mystery booster drafts and all of that. So there was still a ton of events firing. So there's actually way more Magic than I thought there would be. It's just like, imagine if while you were waiting for your queues and things, you can go try out all the wild new board games. I found out there is a Monster Hunter board game, and I kind of want it. And I also saw the minis, and it's like, oh my God, I think I get it now because I want to learn how to paint them, except I don't. It's like I want to, but I know it's going to be like $1 billion.
Man, I'm surprised Magic hasn't done that yet and started
minis.
Just like blank cards that you're supposed to paint yourself. Like, the color by numbers they give little kids, sort of, like the outline, and then you're supposed to paint them in. I'm surprised they haven't done that and tried to get in on the self painting hype. But anyway,
about that, yeah.
So today, we're actually, Krim brought up mystery boosters. That's one of our topics. They announced a new run of mystery boosters. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about standard. We're going to talk some juicy tournament drama from over the weekend. And then we got some smaller topics we might hit up about how to fix secret Lair drops, maybe some Olympic news even. So we're going to be jumping all over the place. Before we get into it though, a reminder that today's show is brought to you by Card Conduit. And Card Conduit's the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. And if you ever get tired of the hassles of buy listing, you can skip them with Card Conduit. You can use their curated service where you send in as many cards as you want with a buy list value of $1 or more and pay just a 5% service fee. And if you want to do a bit of work, you can use the the sorted service where you list and sort your cards in advance and pay just a 2% fee. And either way, you're going to get a detailed report with the results and a fast payment once your order is processed. And you can even get another 10% off by heading over to cardconduit.com/MTGGoldfish. Card Conduit, they're the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. So thank you to Card Conduit for supporting this show. And let's talk some Magic, and let's start with what I guess might be the biggest news of the week, which is we're getting new mystery boosters. So they just announced this at Gen Con. Krim, did you get to open any of these? Were you involved at all with I know they did a draft there. It sounds like the official release or is maybe Vegas, but they did a preview event or something. What was your experience? Did you get to check out any of these new mystery boosters too?
I got to open a few. I didn't actually get to draft it because I was doing a few other board game things. But yeah, it was pretty sweet. I mean, it was like all the other, it was like a Gavin Unknown event, right? People got handed a bunch of invitations and things like that. And it's just a very cool vibe about the event. But the biggest thing about the mystery boosters, as I cannot stress this enough, I have been waiting for the return of white bordered Magic cards. And God, some of them look so awkward and I love it. I think so Jimmy Wong posted Uro white border. And I was like, what is that? I want it. I cracked. Oh, I didn't notice how much I loved it, but white bordered black cards. We saw Leyline of the Void. That looks clean, along with my white cards on white border, because I opened personally a Skyclave Apparition. So that was one of them, along with the Future Sight borders.
So if you don't
You
know
ready?
mystery boosters, they're the set with like the weird playtest cards. So we got like
Yeah.
Slivdrazi Monstrosity. So that's where this started. That was the first one. And there's a bunch more of those. But as Krim mentioned, the gimmick of this set, white borders, and also the future sight border returning. We've seen a few previews that are mostly people that like open their packs at Gen Con and posted them on Twitter or whatever. But Richard, sorry, what were you gonna say?
Oh, you ready for the worst selling product of all time? You ready for your staples
Wait,
being like a quarter of the
you think
price?
it's gonna flop?
Oh my god. Okay,
No.
so it's not white border
No.
as we remember, okay? It's the
No.
new Magic the Gathering border. So the one where the bottom is like kind of like flared or whatever, and then there's text on the bottom row. So it's not white border. It's what you like a modern day black bordered card just colored white where in the whole thing. It's not as
Hell
cursed
yeah.
as the Tibble. So if you remember the Tibble from Secret Lair, there was like the first white bordered card they made in a long time. The bottom thing was still black in that one, right? So this time they've gone full white, except it's not the classic like retro border where it's just, a white border around. It's the new one with black text. So the artist credits, the copyright and all that is black text in white. It looks cursed. It looks cursed. I don't know.
I
You like it? I'm
I
a white
like
border believer, but this one looks cursed. It's a new white border. It's a new white border.
so
Are you
I
really
do
gonna
agree.
bring out your deck with white border? White border foils.
I am. I am gonna bling out my deck with a white border, and we got to see, are the foils gonna be a white border? Did you get a foil
Yeah.
Creme white border, or are they
No.
black border? Because it used to be that white border sets, the foils were black border. That's how you end up with like $1,000 Birds of Paradise from 7th edition or whatever, because they were so scarce and so rare. I imagine they're gonna keep them white border this time. I would be surprised if they were black border foils. I feel like these are gonna be very expensive, because one of the things they announced about these so far, unless we can talk them out of it, these are convention only. So the only way you can get these, they're not going to your LGS, they're not selling a retail edition, is basically you open them at like MagicCon Vegas or something similar, or they do the festival in a box, which if you can't make it to the festival, you like buy this package of stuff and you'll get some in there. So I feel like these are actually going to be very expensive, because I think there's just not going to be that many around. And I think there's enough Crims out there that are really going to want the white border version, that like the Wasteland or the Urza Saga or
God. The
like
Ballista.
whatever.
Or no,
Yeah,
Ballista's in
the-
a future sight border, but that one's also awesome.
Yeah, the future sight border looks good. Very good too. I think it looks super cool. There's like Sensei's Divining Top. There's some really good reprints, Underworld Breach, that are showing up in these treatments. I expect they're going to be expensive. What do you think about them not releasing this as a set? So Wizards, I think they asked Gavin about it, and Gavin basically said, Mystery Boosters 2 is meant to be a special experience for players at conventions. These will be at cons of all types, Magic Con and more. Long term, like Mystery Booster 1, there'll be lots of it. It's an extension of the con experience. There'll also be Festival in a Box available online. So no buying them through LGSs. What do you think of it kind of being walled behind the convention experience? I've heard some people be critical of this because they're like, it's really expensive to go to a Magic Con, right? You got to travel if there's not one local and get hotels and flights. So this isn't a product that's accessible for everyone. Is it cool that you get this like special treat for going to Magic Con Vegas or another event, that you get to check out this exclusive event? Or do you think it should be retail as well?
I mean, personally, I think like it's nice, it's cool to have something that you can only get from attending events. But I do like that there are like, for like those that can't go, I do think that there should be some ways to be able to get it. But like, I don't know. I mean, I guess I think of it as the same as like when I haven't been to Comic-Con in like 10 years and I wish I could. And there's always just those sweet exclusives and things like that. So I view this the same, right? Like, oh, well, I won't be getting that because I won't be at Comic-Con. So, like, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't really change much for me whether or not it is or isn't, because if I really want a card, I most likely wasn't buying a booster box anyways. I just buy singles. I always buy singles, and I always advocate for buying singles. So, for me, no, not too big of a deal, because I'll just go individually look for the card.
I don't think it matters, right? Because there's no new cards here. So the playtest cards are new, but they're not
Yeah.
black border, right? They're not legal.
Yeah.
And then all of the white border cards, those are cosmetics. And they have the convention in a box, right? So if you really want access to these, you can just buy that. But these are just cosmetics. I don't lament that I can't, get the winner card from secret layers because they're like 10K or something, right? Like it's just a promo and it's going to be more expensive or whatever, sure, right? But in this case, Wizards actually did you a solid. You could get convention in a box. And there's no new cards. I think if they locked new cards into the set, then we have a big problem. But since it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
premium treatments, white bordered, which
Yeah.
I'm not even sure how
Sure.
this is gonna work.
I will say, I think it does make the Festival in a Box a lot more appealing because from what I remember last time, when they first released Mystery Boosters, these cards were super expensive. Even some of the playtest cards that aren't tournament legal were like $100 a piece or something because they were just so hard to find because you only got them through Festival in a Box or from going to a convention. Eventually, they did the retail edition and that brought the prices way, way down because just anyone could buy them any place, anytime. But I do think if you go to a convention or you get the Festival in a Box, keep that in mind that these cards actually might be pretty valuable. I was thinking about this set, and I want to know what you guys think about this. So as I was looking through these spoilers and these like goofy playtest cards that look, pretty fun to play with, but some of them don't really work under the rules exactly. And it kind of struck me that I feel like Mystery Booster is kind of unsets done right. I feel all the upside of the unset. You get these like not tournament legal, but really unique playtest cards that are kind of goofy and funny and have the in-jokes on them and the puns and whatnot. And then you get these good reprints with a special treatment, kind of like the Galaxy lands we saw with the Shock lands in Infinity. But instead we're getting like White Border and Future Sight Border. I feel like this is what I want unsets to be. Like this is unsets without the baggage of like acorns and jokes that didn't age well from 25 years ago and like all the downsides of unsets. Shouldn't we just keep doing mystery boosters and like do more of them and forget the unset thing? Is that a unfair comparison?
Nice. Is that an unpun? Okay. Well, either way, I enjoy these way more, right? Like I myself wasn't a huge fan of Infinity. The only thing I wanted was the space lane, right? That was about it. But if all I'm getting are the lands, then it's not so great. So unfortunately, I am not a fan of like these Infinity packs. So keep doing mystery boosters. Mystery boosters gives people reprints of cards they like, fancy like in a mystery booster. I think this is where you can also still troll. Like the amount of people that will like rip their eyes out when they see a white bordered card or a future sight card and an even more cursed white border card, according to Richard. That alone still allows you to have the fun and the leeway inside of a mystery booster, and you can still print the silly playtest cards, which actually has some really fun designs that I'm kind of sad never existed. Like, did you see the Mox Poison?
That card would be
That's
so
actually
busted
pretty good.
though. That would be
Oh.
so busted. But yes, like it is a cool design. And I think that's a cool drawback that maybe we could see at some point. Like imagine an untapped dual land cycle or something that you can fetch out, but every time you tap it, you have to get a poison or something. So there's this cap on how many times you can use it. So yeah, I think the Mox itself, it is super cool. It's just like an actual Mox, but when you tap it, you get 2 poison counters.
Yeah.
I imagine that would break a format like Modern or something though, right? Even if you can only use it 4 times, just like being able to get the extra mana on turn 1, probably worth it.
Yeah. Also, the fact that they went above and beyond and got Dan Frazier art for a like duel.
And I think these cards are actually funnier, for me at least, than the Infinity cards. Like there was Indicate, which is a play on Vindicate, and it's just 0 mana, sorcery, target permanent.
That's good in Nadu.
Yeah, you just target a permanent. You just target a permanent. To me, that's way funnier than like a lot of the jokes we saw in the last unsets. But what do you think, Richard? Comparing this to unsets.
This is a set that has no pressure to sell, so they can go all out. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
when they make the silver border sets, if we just said like, oh, if it sold 5 and like no one cared, like no one would care, right? But because they push it so hard, there's spoiler season, they try to hype it up. There's big expectations around it and it flops. But this one, they're like, we don't even need to sell it. We're just giving it away at conventions, right? And then we don't care. We can do all the jokes like we care about, right? We don't need to try to mass appeal and do whatever. So I kind of like that aspect, right? When there's no pressure to get sales and numbers and stuff like that, you can do whatever you want. So I kind of like that. And yeah, I agree. The jokes are a lot funnier. I feel the unsets have become this weird thing of their own.
Yeah.
So these are kind of more like Magic nerd jokes, right? So
Yeah.
and we're boomers, so we appreciate it.
I'm gonna have to grab a box when we go to Vegas for sure. Maybe we'll have to do a draft. Maybe we gotta do a a Goldfish Mystery Booster 2 draft while we're in Vegas. That would be
That
super
sounds
cool. But
much easier to track than stickers.
I
God.
was thinking that too. Like we did Infinity last time and that was so rough. So this might be a little bit better draft experience. But speaking of Gen Con, we got some drama coming out of Gen Con over the weekend. I don't know if you see any of this, Richard, with the like Secret Lair showdown stuff. So at these tournaments, they do the Secret Lair showdowns. And the idea of these are if you win, you get this exclusive secret. I don't know why they call it Secret Lair because that sends a weird message that it's like something you buy off their website. It's this exclusive prize card that there's only 4 of in existence. This time it was Dark Ritual. So it was this exclusive Dark Ritual card, which is worth around $50,000. They actually sold one, I guess, at the event for $48,000. So actually someone paid almost $50,000 for one of these Dark Rituals. But there was some drama in the tournament. Richard, why don't you let us know what happened at this event?
All right. Basically, there was a match loss, which is the equivalent of ending your tournament. This was like for the semis, going into the semis, I think. So this was top 8. But basically, there was some drama involving judges and prize splitting / equity. We currently have the account of the person that was match loss. People are saying DQ'd, but it's not DQ'd, right? So when you get DQ'd from a tournament, you forfeit all prizes. When you get a match loss, you get a match loss and you're out of the tournament because this is a top 8, but you would get the prize for like whatever your finish is, right? So in this case, top 8, right? So this match loss happened because there was a prize split happening. And I've never heard of this, guys, but apparently the players were trying to swap equities of themselves. So they would do something like, if I win, I would get 80% of the prize. So $48,000 Dark Ritual, I would get 80% of it. And I would give you 20% of that, right? So it's some kind of like mitigation against losing, right? Like you're selling a percentage of yourself away in case you win. And then therefore the other person who lost would get 20% of the winnings or something. So it is a prize split where the results still matter, essentially. But apparently this talk was happening. This person rejected offers from other players in the top 8. And then they were having a conversation with a friend who was outside the tournament. And the friend was explaining some kind of equity setup here. And they didn't really understand what was going on, but they rejected it. And a judge overheard this and then went to the head judge. Head judge came back, DQ'd. Or not DQ, but match loss, right? They tried to appeal to the head judge, and then the head judge like shut it down. And this is just the account of the person who got match lost. But then there are a bunch of people saying, I was in this area, and this is exactly what I heard. So there are people, corroborating the story with them. But at the end of the day, shady high-level Magic tournament of words you can or cannot say, and you get DQ'd. Like, is this the story we've not heard time and time again?
Didn't this just happen?
It's a lot. It's $48,000 on the line, by the way, right? So
Yeah.
that Dark Ritual was sold on site, like right there for $48,000.
I feel like this one feels really bad to me because like the person involved wasn't even part of the game. Like there's tons of like sketchy stuff that goes on in Magic tournaments with like intentional draws or people. There was this big thing about people like scooping to their friends in qualifiers. So like all their friend group would sign up for qualifiers and you scoop to one person so they make it and they qualify for the event. Like stuff like that is scummy, not technically against the rules, but it feels kind of scummy. This one felt really bad to me because based on this story, and it is important to point out, as Richard said, we're getting one person's perspective. There is some other people kind of backing up the story or being in the area and backing up the story. But it feels pretty bad to me that it seems like this player didn't actually do anything wrong. Like they didn't actually, I'm not even sure it's against the rules to sell equity in your tournaments. I haven't really been able to find confirmation that even that is against the rules. But even if it is, they didn't actually do that. Like all they did is they had someone outside the tournament. Imagine this. Here's my problem with this. Let's say we go to Vegas in a few months and it's the World Championships. I walk up to the rail during Worlds and I'm like, hey, Kai, How about you give me some equity? How much you want for some equity? Should he get a match loss for that? Like, because I'm not in the tournament, but should he get a match loss because someone suggested that to him? To me, that feels like what's happening here based on this story. Maybe there's all this stuff behind the scenes, or there's lying going on in the story that we don't know. Maybe there's something else going on, but based on this story, it feels so wrong to me.
I mean, when you put it like that, yeah. I guess it's like if like example, the person in the tournament actually didn't have any part of that, like if and then still got a DQ, then sure, that would be wrong. But if they are splitting equity, that is still monetary gain of some sort, right? So like that is still offering something monetary or something at all in exchange for a result. Like that is usually a match loss or DQable. But I don't know if it because this person is from outside the game, this one's a little bit weirder.
Right. Like if you made a deal with your opponent, I think
Yeah.
that would be against the rules. And that's one of the criticisms that's come up about this entire event is based on what people are saying, there's lots of this going on. Who knows exactly how true any of that is. How much of it do you think has to do with the tournament structure? Because that's been the other big criticism from people is basically a lot of Magic tournaments, it's a pretty flat prize structure. Like the value you get from getting first is not that much different than getting fourth or getting eighth. But in this case, if you get first, it's worth $50,000. If you get second, your prize is worth maybe $1,500. So first place is worth magnitudes more than any of the other places. And if you're out of the top 8, I think you get basically nothing or some, pins or whatever. This happens all the time in poker. It's very normal. If you see the World Series of Poker coming, follow like Efro or any of the Magic like poker pros who you'll follow on Twitter. It's very common in the poker world to like sell pieces of your tournament. You invest so much money, helps pay the entry fees, and then if they win, you get a percentage of their winnings. Should this just be accepted in Magic if we're going to have these like super high-end tournaments that are essentially close to winner take all?
I mean, I don't think it's going to be a good look if you're like, oh, let's match the poker system, right? Like I don't think that's a good look at all for the game.
So this is sports betting, which I don't know what's going on because when I watch the NFL has turned like into like sports betting sponsorships, right? Like, is this somehow legal now? But it's literally just sports betting, right? You're betting on yourself, which makes it even shadier, right? Like, if I could buy odds of LSV winning, an event, that seems a little suspicious. That seems like just horse racing or gambling. That seems weird. But isn't it even weirder if the person in the tournament is buying odds of themselves like that? Even if it's technically allowed,
But Richard,
the rules should be
is
revisited.
there something wrong with believing in yourself?
Yeah. You have to believe in yourself only in spirit, not through monetary reasons, okay? But yeah, it seems a little weird. So if this is somehow actually allowed, the rules should be changed to disallow. It's a very bad look for the sports. I think all sports have issues with this, right? Like, if you are going to play in the World Series and you bet on yourself, that's like kind of stupid. Like, you're just technically betting on yourself by playing there. But if you put your money into the sports betting system to bet on yourself, that seems kind of illegal and then match fixie, right? Because once you can bet on yourself, why can't you bet on the other guy? Now you bet on the other guy and throw the match, right? like that's where it goes, right? So that's why sports betting and fixing is looked down upon in terms of competitive integrity. But yeah, I don't like the story. I'll tell you what's wrong with the story though, Seth. Because the person in question basically said, I don't know how any of this works. I'm innocent. Why did you hit me with this? But they are like a serial winner, which sounds kind of weird, right? Like, they continually win, like straight up win these big tournaments, right? They are the 2023 Eternal Weekend Legacy and Vintage Champion. Like, what the hell? They won 2 events that weekend, right? Incredible, right? But they are a person that hangs around the top tables all the time. So I feel this is a case of like, they know what's right and wrong, and they felt they stayed on the right lane, but then the head judge called them wrong on it. But now they're throwing their hands up and saying, I don't know what's allowed and what's not allowed and whatnot. But I think to be continually at this table, like what's allowed and what's not allowed. And maybe it's like, speeding at like 62 miles per hour on a 60, like technically illegal, but everyone got away with it. But then the cop like actually calls you out on it. And you're like, what the heck, dude? Like, maybe it's one of those situations But I this is not a random noob that like shambled their way into a top 8, right? This is someone who's like continually at the top table, spiking events, winning time and time again. This can't be a foreign situation, right? So I feel there's some details missing here. Maybe they are ultimately right. Like maybe the hedge judge was unfair, but I don't think like, oh, I don't know what's going on, and everything seemed fine. Like I feel that's not the full story.
I mean,
There's
that is
probably
that is a
details
fair
omitted.
point, right? That is a fair point that the person, I guess, like you're saying, they should have known better because they play a lot of tournament Magic and have been
Yeah.
at the top table. So that is, I think that is fair to say. Although, I don't know. Maybe I guess we're just putting so much weight into this one story, and it would be. I don't think this will happen. I would love to hear like the judge's perspective on it. It does make me wonder if, like, I don't know, if this is all bunk for some reason. Would it be worth the judge coming out and being like, "Hey, here's what really happened," and like trying to win the PR battle a little bit, or is that like a worse idea and you just let it go and take your lumps? Because people are like kind of upset at judges. People are like, that's kind of one of the things that come out of this is judges are cops. You should never talk to judges. If something happens in a tournament, don't call a judge because it's going to be bad for you. And I think that's a bad thing for the game, right? Like if people end up feeling like they shouldn't be called judges because something bad will happen if they do, that's going to leave the game in a worse state overall. So how do you handle it from that perspective? Let's set this aside. Like I guess we don't know. This could be lying. It could be details omitted. Maybe there's something else going on. But how do we handle like the player's perception of judges being an enemy at this point, rather than someone who's there to help and make sure the tournament runs fairly? Like, what do we do about that?
We've had centuries of sports drama to fall back upon, Seth. And here's
How do
what
you feel
really
about
gets
the
to me.
refs?
Exactly, right? This is a decision that has like $48,000 on the line, right? So it seems bad just to be on the whims of a random hedge judge. Now the hedge judge is high up, right? But are they the best judge? Like, at the Super Bowl, like every year there's like this big thing where they choose the crew to do the Super Bowl based on past performance and whatnot, and all that stuff, right? To ensure that they have like the fairest refereeing crew and the one operating at the highest caliber possible. Like, do we need that for Magic the Gathering? Like, was this just a random hedge judge, or was this like the best hedge judge possible because it's a $48,000 event? And like, can players control this in any way? Can we petition like, hey, this is the world championship, right? Like, is this the best judge? Like, what proof do you have that this is not some noob crew? I don't want to get got by this, right? Like we do in all sports, right?
That's how it works in sports, right? Like the people who are like reffing the Super Bowl are in theory the best refs from the regular season, and then they grade them, and whoever does well gets the postseason assignments. Also worth pointing out that it was April of this year that Wizards cut ties with the Judge Academy. So we used to have this like system for judges being trained. Wizards decided to cut ties with it, and last I saw, they said if you want to judge an event, contact the tournament organizers and they'll let you know if you can judge or something. So I feel like some of the blame for this, the judging end of it, probably lands on Wizards' feet for not like supporting the judge program or having this like active judge program to make sure that judges are well trained, and kind of just like throwing it to the winds and making it the TO's responsibility instead of Wizards like having that responsibility. Do you think that plays into it at all, Krim? Like the Judge Academy stuff and that ending?
I mean, I have to imagine that like the Judge Academy, losing the Judge Academy didn't help, right? I can't. The problem is I can't tell what the Judge Academy and like what Wizards are like separately, right? Like so like to like what was the purpose of the Judge Academy here? What did they do, and what are the judges currently under, I guess, just basic event running and all that? What's the difference between that judge and the Judge Academy judge? I don't really know. So I think that's something that do they ever expand on that? Like other than just, oh, we
I
cut
have not.
ties?
I have not seen an update since then. That's the last one I've seen. Is we're not doing it anymore. Talk to the TOs if you want to judge. Maybe there's more out there that I haven't seen, but that's the last thing that I have seen about it.
So then
Where do
that
judges
means
come from
now,
then?
huh? Yeah,
Where do you
I
get
get.
judges from? Like if there's no organization of judges, like
Are
if I am a
they?
TO and I need a judge, like who do I
Krim.
Yeah,
Krim,
funny enough.
Krim used to be a judge, right?
Yeah, I'm an old L1.
But who certifies the hedge judge as a hedge judge, or who certifies like an L1 judge as an L1 judge now without the judge program?
Buddy system.
There's got to be something, right? There's got to be something out there that does it. I think. I guess I'm not sure.
Maybe
I don't
the
know. If
store?
anyone knows this, let us know. If you're a judge and you're actually like involved in the system, I would be curious to know exactly how it works. I still see a Judge Academy website exists, so like maybe there's still a Judge Academy, but Wizards is not part of it, and they're just on their own. That might be how this is. That Wizards doesn't oversight it, but they're an independent organization now. But yeah, definitely interesting to see all this going on. So I guess I don't. What do you think about the high EV tournament? Like, is there any argument to changing the structure, or is it fine to have winner take all $50,000 tournaments?
I think there's got to be a prize, right?
And you want a good
No,
prize, right? You don't want to make the prize worse. Like,
flat.
give them a cheaper card to even it out. Like, I don't know.
Like, sure, maybe top 8 gets like a monetary, like a split or whatever, but there's got to be like a trophy, not a trophy, because the trophy doesn't actually, it's not worth anything, right? But the actual card. The card is probably like something like that, a prize card you can only get like they've been doing at the Secret Lair showdowns. I think that's pretty enticing. I like that personally.
So here's the problem. They need to give money, because when they give money, they can tune it correctly, right? So if you guys wanted a flat prize structure, let's say first place gets 30K, second place gets 25K, right? So only 5K on the line, like that's not bad, right? So that wouldn't incentivize like crazy cheating. But because we're like, Dark Ritual is number 1, what are you going to put as number 2, right? And how are you going to ensure that they're close in value? And the number 1 card, just by being a number 1 card, will always be worth more. So you can't really tune the price, the price of these prizes, and that becomes a problem. But the thing is, like, a Dark Ritual is free to print, right? It does not.
Yeah, it works out pretty
well
for
cost
WotC, right?
48,000 real dollars. So I don't know that we're fixing this anyway, but it needs to be flat. Just like if Krim, if you and I were to play in a rock, paper, scissors match for 100,000, it would be incredibly stupid of us not to split it, right? Because there's like almost no skill dip here, and you're leaving it to random chance. So it's much easier for us to split it and call it a day. Even at high level Magic, even in a good match, like what are your odds of winning? Like 60-40, right? And if it's not a good match, like 52-48, if you really believe in like player diff, it's like almost 50-50, right? You're super incentivized to split and to mitigate this if the prize structure is not flat. So I think the best way is to make people not cheat, right? Like no matter what rules you put in place, if people have a reason to cheat it somehow, they will. And then cheat in this case is like get what they want without technically breaking the rules. Right. So you just need to make it so that what they want is like the default. Right. So if we make it a flat price structure, no one will be doing weird stuff to try to get around it. Same with like IDing and intentional draws and whatnot. Like the tournament structure just rewards that. So everyone's going to do that. Right. So if you don't want that, you have to make a structure where it's just not even part of the question. So,
but isn't that what a card does instead of like a flat cash amount?
Well, everyone gets a Dark Ritual in top 8 and call it a day, right? And then
but like,
the Dark Ritual is worth less, but then everyone gets it, right?
No, but you don't want, I think in tournaments, I don't like when everyone splits. Like when I used to like, believe it or not, your boy, he may be a Clown Fiesta, but he used to top 8 a few events. And I was always the person that would say, no, I don't want to split.
Because do you think the card stops that though, Krim? Like, the person just won it and went to the vendor and got $48,000 for it. Like, it's not like it's hard to turn a card into actual US dollars.
It's not, but the thing here is then you have to go and do that whole tedious process, or you could wait, but whatever. Point is, at least Magic, the only time I have a problem is when Magic is not played at all, right? But as long as like there is a card, I think it kind of, for the most part, incentivizes you to play. Right. And I find the worst top 8s are the ones where everyone just splits.
I
You
definitely
don't
agree
know
with
it because we
the
split
splits
behind
and
the
the
scenes and played
IDs
out.
and all that stuff. But I don't know if the card actually changes that. Just based on the stories we've heard about this event, everyone's still trying to sell their equity, trying to set up these splits to try to maximize their EV. So I don't know if the card solves the problem necessarily, but I do agree. Like Magic,
Aha.
tournament Magic would be better if everyone just had to play their games and let the chips fall where
Like,
they may, and people were IDing and doing all the, the splits and all that kind of
Just
stuff.
don't have friends to collude with.
Yeah.
And then you're just always the lone wolf. And you
do you know how I know
Exactly.
it's so bad? Like, look how convoluted the system is, right? Like, they have refined this top 8 after top 8 to come up with this weird equity splitting system, right? This is not like the first time it's happened. You're like, oh, equity split system. I figured it out, guys, right? Like, it happens like every tournament, and they have somehow optimized it into like this equity splitting prize selling thing, right? So it happens so much. They got to address it, I think. But at the same time, like, who does it affect really? Right? You're like, it affects like 50 people of like a 100 million gamer base or something, right? Like, those Wizards really, if they can't even care about like actual like PTQs and stuff like that, do you think they're gonna care about like top 8 prizing of like $50,000 tournaments, of which there are like a handful, right? Like, that's the problem, right?
Especially not now when the system works so well for Wizards, because as you mentioned before, like they print a piece of cardboard into a player, it's 50 grand. Like if they had to put real money behind that, it would eat into their budget. Like that's a lot of money, like over the course of the tournament. So I think Wizards probably doesn't have much of incentive to change the current structure, I wouldn't think.
I think it's like overall a pretty good positive for, I guess, both, right? I mean, like before, you'd win maybe a fraction of that or something like that if you won.
It's nice to
Now-
have that big number up there, yeah.
Yeah, and like One Piece, the one thing that's nice, and you see it in Lorcana too, that people are going out and jamming tournaments, is because just getting somewhere in the tournament, there's exclusive cards, costs the company to make nothing, and it gets you all the monetary value, like the whatever the whales want to add to it. So I don't know. I like the idea of prize cards. I do think that there should be more prize cards in Wizards tournaments, like going down to like maybe even top 16. But like, yeah, like I don't know. I mean, what is it? One Piece, if you got like top 75, I think I was able to still get like one of those like fancy choppers and all these other things. And I sold
Top
that for, like,
64.
yeah, top 64.
is where you start getting
Dang,
fancy
dude, I
cards.
didn't know I did that well. Oh man.
Oh,
No,
well,
yeah, like-
speaking of actually playing Magic, we got new standard. New standard is here. We got our first results for Bloomburrow standard, getting some tournaments played online, Magic Online, also some arena tournaments. I'm curious, what you guys think a week into the standard format? How have you been enjoying Bloomburrow standard so far? Richard, I know you've actually taken the plunge since you've given up on Modern and become a standard player. How's that transition been
Oh my
going?
God, you must feel so much better, like in a better place emotionally.
Oh my god. Oh my god. I have become a One Piece main, guys.
Oh my god.
I played standard and I'm like, what is going on? It's so fast. So interestingly, I was playing Gruul Mice. I played a Golgari deck, which Seth sent me, that he thought was a sleeper, but
You didn't
apparently
like
the
it?
entire internet is caught on because that is the default deck now. And then I was just getting like blasted by Boros Convoke, Slick Shot Showdown or whatever, like these like super fast decks where you tap out and then you like just instant die. I don't know. And then mana was incredibly jank. Like I'm playing Mirrex to get mana on curve. And I'm like, why are people like this is the
Ouch.
thing? Like the Thran City or whatever. It's like the terrible city of Brass.
Oh,
right?
oh yeah.
There's certain colors, Gruul in particular, have like terrible mana if you're trying to like curve out and do things and need color pips. But yeah, I played Moto though, so that might be different from your Magic Arena
Oh,
experience.
that might be.
But lots of there's a big variety of decks, but so big that it feels like Modern without the sideboard. Because like in one hand you die on turn 3 to Boros Convoke, and in the other hand it's like Gruul Ramp where they're drawing 1,000 cards with like Hugs and the dragons and whatnot, and you're like, what the heck, right? The range is so great that my poor mid range deck can't keep up with any of this, and I really
This
felt like
is-
Prim. every deck I look at, like, that deck falls in temporal lockdown or whatever, right? I'm like, I gotta play Azorius Control. What am I doing?
Richard, this is why we can't ever have nice things as Magic players. Why? There's no diversity. Oh, there's too much.
It's too diverse. It's too diverse and too fast. That's
I
the
hate
problem.
it. I can play anything. I hate this game.
I will
Why
say
am I
it
dead
is-
already? It's turn 3. Even Modern's not this fast. What's going on?
It is a very fast format. Like it is, there are very fast decks in this format. I don't know if
Sure.
I want to say it's a fast format because if you just look at the metagame page right now, the 2 top decks or mid-range decks, Orzhov and Golgari, but there are like the Slick Shot Show Off Gruul deck. I just played a Rakdos deck on Budget Magic where the whole goal is to just turn 3 kill like with the fling effect, Callous, Sellsword or whatever. So there are like very, very fast punishing. It's actually kind of funny to see people like untap. I untap on turn 3 and our opponent's at 20 and I have like a 1/1 on the battlefield and then they just die. Like no one sees it coming. So
That
it
was
is
me,
very
Seth.
fast like that. That might
And
have
I'm
been
holding the
you.
cut down in hand. I'm holding the cut down in hand, and they
Yeah,
just
shouldn't have
outpowers
tapped
it. I'm
out.
like, great. This is great.
Why are you pub stomping Richard?
I've been loving
Stop pub
I've been-
stomping me, please.
I've been loving this format though. I had my, I think, fastest run ever to Mythic. I hit Mythic yesterday after like 3 days, playing Golgari and then the Rakdos deck. So I have really enjoyed the standard format. And I do think like it's week 2 now, right? Or week 1, depending on how you count. Like, I think we're still kind of scratching the surface. And if you look at the decks, it seems like a good mix. Like, it is very powerful, but we got mid-range. We have Azorius control, 4-color control. We got the super dedicated aggro decks. So I actually have pretty high hopes that we're going to end up in a pretty good spot in this standard. But what do you think, Grim?
I think one thing you need to also let's control players. Let's talk here. I think control is entirely different here. And I think it's actually very interesting. It plays a lot like old Tezzerator control back in Scars of Mirrodin, blue-black. The artifact decks are kind of the control decks right now, because counter magic is, though don't get me wrong, you know, I was like ripping my shirt open, screaming at the top of my lungs for super mana leak, but Cavern of Souls kind of has made for this, and like a lot of the uncounterable things has made for an interesting situation. So your counter spells have to be more than a counter spell. So 3 steps ahead is amazing, and you know, mana leak, super mana leak is just okay, right? It's just good, not busted. But you're now seeing, like one thing I had mentioned a while back on the last podcast, I just also filmed a video for artifacts. And it's that I think post-rotation artifacts got a lot better, and it looks that way still. Because you're seeing Simulacrum Synthesizer go in blue-white control decks. I just played a Jeskai variant of this, and so I imagine if you go blue-white, you do get better mana. Just smoother mana. So, but yeah, like playing that Braided Net, Cryptic Coat, and just every Golgari, every mid-range deck right now is still black-based for the most part, and you're seeing 4 of Go for the Throats. They're just missing. You know, I see so many people just sitting there. I'm like, oh, simply just go for the throat. Oh, wait, apparently robots don't have throats. What do you think about that? So, yeah, like right now, I am liking this format. I think our artifacts are really good. Week 1 or 2 at least. I don't know. We'll see how the removal comes in. Obviously, post board things get a little more interesting, but you'll just have more counter magic. I've been using Dawn's Truce, that new sort of like protection spell in white. Yeah, where if you gift, then they also have indestructible. So I've been using that to kind of like protect like, you know, my synthesizers. And Season of Weaving has been a bomb. Like a solid top end spell for artifact decks. For those that don't know, that's right, your boy is using those paw print like resources. It's 6 mana, and the first like 1 paw print is draw a card, 2 paw prints is choose an artifact or creature you control, create a token that's a copy, and then 3 paw prints return each non-land non-token permanent to its owner's hand. So you still get to keep. First off, you will make a copy of Synthesizer. If you're worried about a mass sweep, then you will be able to keep all the tokens you've made from your Synthesizer prior, and then you just get to close out with that. Like, this is a solid top-end spell in that kind of deck. Maybe it's a little mana-intensive, and that's the only thing about it, but for the most part, it's played quite nicely. I don't know if I want 4, but I definitely want some amount. I tried 4 at first, so I'm really liking artifacts. If you're looking to not, you know, pub stop Richard in 2 seconds. If you're looking to play a little bit of a longer game, I think this is like a fun one. There's also a few other control variants, so kind of an interesting format so far, and not as typal heavy as Bloomburrow would lead you to think it'd be.
There's
I got a
very
shout out.
little Bloomburrow happening. Like it's
I mean,
a couple
true?
of key pieces. So on the Goldfish pages, if you click on like any tournament, it highlights the Bloomburrow cards being played. And if we look at, say, like the standard challenge, the most played card is Beza. That's the timely reinforcements thing that Seth was pretty high on. It just goes into Orzhov midrange. And then you got like Fountain Port, which people are using as another but like as a Mirrex, right? Like it's just like another
Right.
Mirrex, right? They're not using it for like token synergies or anything, right? Just to poop out a token. And then like the mice, like we don't really see like a mouse deck per se, but we see like one or two key mice in like a Gruul deck or in a red aggressive deck. But the two most popular decks are still just piles of Golgari midrange and Orzhov midrange. So we'll see. Here's the problem with one block structures though. It's not getting any better for mice, right? Like if we don't see mice now, we're probably never seeing mice ever, right? Unless like there happens to be some scary mice in Duskmourn, but usually that's not the case. What are the other? I think mice was the biggest one, right? Because you can go aggro or you can go equipment or something, and they haven't really shown up. I played a mouse deck. It's kind of funny. It's kind of fast, but like there are other fast decks that are more consistent, right? There's just fast decks that are more consistent than mice, right?
I think that's kind of the issue, right? Like mice are fast, but compared to like the slick shot, like prowess style, like those style decks, I think they're like not as fast. Rabbits, I think, was other like a Bloomburrow creature type that had a lot of potential. Like on early access day, I played against a lot. Haven't really seen them much. They are pretty soft to like sweepers and temporary lockdowns because they got the token theme. Maybe it'll just take longer. I do think it's a good point though that maybe not that likely to get more support in the future. I played against Toxic Aggro for the first time in a long time the other day, and I was thinking as I played it, I was like, man, this deck's kind of like stuck in time. This is like, you have the same cards from 2 years ago when Phyrexia first released. You're not going to get any more Toxic cards, so everyone else is getting Bloomburrow cards and Outlaws of Thunder Junction cards and eventually Duskmourn cards, and you're kind of stuck like, well, maybe I can upgrade a removal spell or a protection spell or something, but your core like Toxic stuff is going to be stuck forever. And I think Bloomburrow might end up in the same spot. Like, are we really going to get a bunch more mice? I don't know. We got 3 years standard. Maybe we return to Bloomburrow by the time Bloomburrow 1 rotates. Like, it's not, I guess, impossible at this point. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how those decks shake out. I do need to shout out, though, Innkeeper's Talent. That card is the truth. I think that's the best card in the set, and that's a card I have had the most success with, and I kind of overlooked it during spoiler season because I didn't really think through the doubling season mode. It's one of the class enchantments, and the first mode is like Luminarch Aspire, get a counter on a creature on beginning of combat, then you level it up and you get ward with your things with counters, but then when it's fully leveled up, you actually get a straight up doubling season that just doubles your counters, and it just lets you insta-kill people with Vraska, because Vraska ultimate comes in with enough loyalty to ultimate, and then its ultimate puts 9 poison counters on your opponent, but that gets doubled 2 to 18 poison counters. So it's basically like Golgari Splinter Twin in standard, but I think Innkeeper's Talent is, oh man, I miss that card so hard, but that card's so good.
That card seems sweet. It's like a super, what is it, Hunter class, whatever from old AFR, but like beefed up and like power crept like heck. But you know what? I will say that I did pair against that yesterday, and Synthesizer goes off. Despite them having a ton of counters, I just had like a 14/14 token.
Synthesizer's a messed up card. I'm playing 4 Tranquil Throwbacks in my sideboard though, and whatever that Exile Golgari thing is. So I got a plan for it, but yeah, Synthesizer, boy, that is such a strong card.
I've also enjoyed Vren,
go ahead, Grim.
By the way. Vren has been solid. Just a quick game closer. If you do not answer, Kalidas but a rat. Oh, dude,
how are you still alive? What are we doing different? How are you still alive on turn 4 to play a Vren and pass?
I don't know.
Seth baited me to playing Lily. He's like, Richard, you can play Innkeeper's Talent and alt Lily insta half someone. And here I am against Boros Convoke with Liliana's in hand. I'm like, Seth, You got me.
I,
You got
I,
me. Why am I
got,
playing Liliana of the Veil in this format? They're like,
I,
I plot my thing. I'm like, great, my Lily does nothing. Okay. Sure. Go.
I,
I'm like,
I
set
wonder.
me up.
I wonder
He
if it's the
set me
difference
up.
between Arena and Moto because I got the receipts. I have like a 75% win rate with that deck across like 30 matches or something. Like so the deck I've been crushing it with it. But I do think Moto is like way harder than the Arena ladder. So maybe that's part of the difference that I think like steamrolling people on Arena is a little bit tougher than winning leagues on Moto with all the old timers who
I
are
need
still
a
left playing
mental health
standard on
reset. I
Moto.
gotta go pump stomp on Arena for a little bit. It's
Yeah,
like
go
drafting
jump
on
on the
Moto
ladder.
versus Arena. It's like day and night.
Man.
But yeah, Lily out of the Veil, Seth. I can't believe you got me with the little. Next, you're gonna be like Tarmogoyf is giving standard.
I know how to get you. I know how to. Herborg Lure Coin.
I was like, I know Lily
promise.
sucked for a long time in standard, right? But I can ultimate, insta ultimate, and I can
You
get
know,
rid of by
Richard,
picking the
there
wrong
are-
tiles.
There are good planeswalkers. Just to lightly touch up on that, Seth, Ral, Storm Ral has made an
Wait,
appearance.
which Ral?
Storm, like Otter Ral, the one, and I've actually,
Oh.
I've
seen a lot of that pop up, and I've also seen it ult pretty quick.
I think it's my impression of it is it's very good in like mid-range and control decks. I have not seen it be very impressive in like Otter prowess style decks though. When people try to
Yeah.
play it as their top end of their Otter deck, I'm like, oh yeah, that card sucks. But when they play it in their control deck or like their mid-range deck, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my god, I can't beat that card. I can't beat that card. It has so much loyalty. How am I ever gonna get through that? So yeah, I think that card actually is kind of maybe a little bit of a sleeper at this point. But yeah.
It's made combat kind of weird, right? Because it's just like, oh, if I swing into it, and if I swing Xaxes, something
They
like, you know,
cast a spell and
yeah,
get
they
loyalty, and yeah,
you don't
it's
know
rough.
what
That ability
they
is
have.
strong.
Yeah, it is really good. And another one that I'm looking back on and trying out that I think might be okay. Well, it won't be his first printing, but I think is actually not the worst. Kind of half decent. Oko the Ringleader.
Ooh,
Oko the Ringleader. I've been
interesting.
playing a little bit of Glarb. Glarb Sultai mid-range. Maybe that's what you need to be playing, Richard. I got you. I got you.
I'm playing Slick Shot Show Off. I think that's the most broken card
Just
they've
kill
ever
'em.
printed. Like plot is so insanely broken, right? Because you dodge all the removal, like the sorcery speed removal, without wasting your mana, right? So you're basically converting your mana to a future turn, and like it's so hard to play around. So I'm gonna be a slick shot show off main. I don't know what that is. Should I play Rakdos or Gruul, Seth? what is the better deck? Or
I liked Rakdos more. Gruul is the more popular overall. I thought I had more success with Rakdos, so personally, but I think Gruul is probably the default choice. Just if you look at like the metagame page or whatever, they play similarly. I like the upside of Rakdos. I think the big upside is you have the turn 3 kill potential because of the fling plan. I really like that as a way to just like steal wins out of nowhere when I don't think you can do that as easily with Gruul. But Gruul is probably more consistent because you have card draw, you have like questing druids and stuff that Rakdos doesn't get. So you get more
like
protection.
Snakeskin Veil.
The Rakdos deck is very just like, I'm going to go for it. I'm gonna try to kill you on turn 3 if you can stop me good, and then I do nothing. But if you don't stop me, you're going to die on turn 3, which in standard is super fast. There's not a lot of turn 3 kills. There are traditionally a lot of turn 3 kills in standard. But I got to ask you guys one more question before we're getting near the end of the cast. There was one other topic I wanted to hit up, which was secret lairs. So we have more secret lairs coming. They already announced we're getting like D&D 50th anniversary secret lair super drop the end of August. So we're getting more and more of these super drops. Last super drop, the one with the Monty Python cards, is sold out kind of instantly. It went on sale, I think, as we were doing the podcast last week. And by the time we were done with the podcast, it had already sold out. And there's a big conversation about how we should treat these secret lairs. Because in the past, they would just print them to demand, right? They were on sale for like a week or a month or whatever period of time. And you could buy them at any point during that time and be guaranteed to get one. The downside was you might have to wait a month or a year for shipping for them to actually print the cards, which caused another problem. The current system, a lot of players have complained that they feel like they can't get the cards, and it's just all bots, and it's scalpers who are like basically buying these out instantly and then selling them for 3 times as much on eBay or whatever. What do you think of this current system for secret layers? Because we know this is going to keep happening. We know we're going to keep getting them. Like, that much is clear. Should we go back to the old print to demand system, even if we have to wait a long time for shipping? Is there a way to make this system better where people have more of a chance to get the cards and it's not just the scalpers and the bots? Any thoughts on what we do about secret layers?
I mean, okay, the way it's currently done, if you can fix the scalpers, I think I like just getting the cards, right?
Yeah.
Half the time, I remember the old secret layer model. I'd order these cards and then I'd forgotten. I'd literally just forgotten, and you essentially just throw money into the wind and see it in a year. And like that, I hated that. As someone that's also very impatient, I just hated that. I remember I had already moved by the time my secret layer was ready. So, I think that model was a big no-no. I like the current one. If I miss out, I know I miss out because it's cosmetics for the most part. But like I will say that I just despise that there are bots and scalpers, and they are just like flooding up the queue. The fact that people can't get these, and it's just because somebody just has a bot running, I think that's absurd. So I'm starting to think, because like when I went in there, because I think I got the Miku. I got funny enough, I didn't want the Monty, but I saw that it was sold out. I wanted the Brain Dead stuff. You can kind of just add a ton of things to your cart, and you can kind of stay in the queues and keep adding things into your cart.
Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't realize that.
Yeah, so that is a problem. I think that especially for something that's gonna be like Baldur's Gate, everybody's gonna want that like half topless, like Asterion and all of that stuff. So,
Yeah.
like legitimately the whole dude. Have you seen the art of the Baldur's Gate? Like that's
I saw like 2 cards. Is that they just showed off 2 cards so far?
yeah, Asterion, the vampire guy.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
So yeah, like that is that's pretty much my biggest issue. Is just like that's going to sell, and that's going to be very hard to get, and that if you miss that window, like me, I'm now like when I had to go out and buy like the evil as I go out and try to look for the Evil Dead secret layer, that thing is like $150, right? Which was like 40 at release. So I hope that they can at least eliminate it and make it so that now you just get one. You can get one of each. Of each listing, and that's it.
And I've talked to actual Magic players who are like, well, now because the system is this way, and I know there's all these bots and scalpers, if I do get lucky enough to check out, I just know I should always buy the max because I can just instantly flip them and make a bunch of money on them. So the system's not working. If the goal is to get cool arts directly from Wizards to players, I don't think the system's doing a very good job of that at the moment, because I think it's like it's adding this middleman of finance and scalpers, that are putting on eBay, and then you got to pay more. Richard, more back-end stuff. Can you stop bots and scalpers? Is that possible? Or is this a Wizards problem, or is that just how these kind of sales work anywhere on the internet?
All right. Everyone's complaining about scalpers. This is so One Piece sounding. But scalpers! Like, have you thought that it's just Magic players that want some Monty Python, right? Because the system's not totally botched because, like, let's say you want Brain Dead, it's still available, right? They just underestimated the demand for Monty Python. Here's the problem, though. People are saying, like, Wizard wants FOMO, so you buy everything. That's true to an extent. What they guarantee you they did not want was it to sell out in like 30 minutes, right? They wanted to sell out in some reasonable amount of time, but if they sold it out like instantly, they left so much money on the table, right? I think they should just go to a hybrid system where they print some number, and if you are one of that first batch that buys it, you get insta shipment. And then if you miss that cutoff, then you get it in like 6 months, right? Like the old system. Therefore, you still have some level of FOMO. Don't want to wait 6 months? Like you have to get it on the queue. But if you somehow miss it because you're a normal human being with work and whatnot, right? You sign up and you get it, in 6 months, and like no problem. And there's still some FOMO aspect for Wizards marketing there, but also everyone can get access to it. They don't leave money on the table. Because every time something is sold for twice the price on eBay, that's not money Wizards gets, right? Wizards just got the normal amount. Someone else is making that money. So Wizards doesn't really want that. And yeah, I think they want to go hybrid system. They're not stopping with secret layers anytime soon, so they might as well like invest and like make the right system. But like, there's no way to fix over demand. Like it happens to everything,
Yeah.
right? Like, remember when PlayStation first came out, everyone kept trying to buy it from like every retail site imaginable. And then it gets very bad because it's like One Piece where it gets to the point like you see it in the store, you don't want it, but you buy it, right? Because you
Yep,
know how
because you
rare it
know it's
is.
profitable or it's
Right.
so
Yeah,
rare.
right.
Yep.
Like and then it just like makes it like super bad. So I
Yeah.
feel a hybrid system would probably fix this and achieve all of their goals. But yeah, I know people are upset because like you literally have to be there the second and you're like refreshing like crazy, and then you may not get what you want.
Right, then you had people who waited the whole hour, and it looked like they were gonna get it, but then it wasn't there after waiting a whole hour. Like, I think Prof from Tulare Community College was one of the people that had that experience, so, like, the current system's not great. I actually landed on the exact same thing when we were talking about it on Twitter, like, just, like, print a bunch of them, send them to people instantly, first come, first serve, so you order early, you get yours shipped immediately to Crim or whatever, so you don't have to wait, but then leave it for sale for a week or whatever, and all those people are gonna have to wait, and you print them at your leisure and send them out under the old system. That might be the best of both worlds. I think I'm with Richard on that one, but I hope they do something because it seems like if anything, we're getting more and more of these super drops, and it would be cool if they were a celebration of the cool art and like these cool cards getting to players rather than a monthly complaint session where people are just like feeling bad about not being able to get it or waiting in line for no reason or
It's
whatever.
a way for
So,
Wizards to make money, Seth. It's not to celebrate anything.
I know.
It's
But
a
it would be
way
nice
for
if we didn't
Wizards
have
to
complain about it every
maximize
month.
Hasbro profits.
And that note, I think that brings us to the end of today's podcast. No fish mail this week, but we'll get to it eventually. Richard, how do people send that in?
All right, hit us up at MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions one day, Seth. One day.
Someday. That's going to happen. I promise. Anyway, that brings us to the end of episode 496 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. So, Richard Grimm, thanks for hanging out. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to Card Conduit for supporting the show. And we'll be back next week to talk about whatever goes on in the world of Magic. So, until then, have a spectacular week. And this is the crew signing out.